Well, Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he had bad ratings more than anything else, and he said a horrible thing about a great gentleman known as Charlie Kirk. And Jimmy Kimmel is not a talented person. He had very bad ratings, and they should have fired him a long time ago. So, you can call that free speech or not. He was fired for lack of talent.
Breaking news, Jimmy Kimmel, his late-night show apparently is suspended indefinitely. The move is coming shortly after our parent company, Nexstar Media Group, announced that it would pull Jimmy Kimmel Live off of all ABC stations it owns throughout the nation over the host's comments about the assassination of Charlie Kirk Monday night.
So in order to understand the Jimmy Kimmel situation, you need to understand how television works, particularly local television. In your hometown, you probably have an ABC station, an NBC station, a CBS station, Fox station. Now, unless you live in big cities like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, these stations are affiliate stations. That means they're owned by a company that's not ABC, NBC, CBS, etc., but either a company that owns 2 or 3 stations or by a station group, like Sinclair Broadcasting, Tegna, Nexstar. Then there are what's called O&Os, which are owned and operated stations. For example, the ABC station in New York is owned and operated by ABC News. Same thing with ABC7 in Los Angeles, it's owned by ABC News Disney. It is rare these days that a station will be owned by a small company. That's because around 10, 15 years ago, station groups, namely Sinclair, started buying up a bunch of local stations all around the country. NBC affiliates, ABC affiliates, it didn't matter. And particularly they focused on small and mid-sized markets. Now this was a strategic move because if you own what the majority of the country, these small local news stations that people in these small towns still watch, then you get to influence what they see. And Sinclair is conservative. It's evident in their content. Now, I used to work for Sinclair back in the day after they bought the station that I was working at. And they used to have these things called must runs, which means no matter where in the country, if you're a Sinclair station, you must put these specific stories in your rundown, aka the news of the day that you're broadcasting. And that's when late night talk shows started making fun of the fact that anchors around the country were saying verbatim the same thing.
Hearing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media
Now, this is important because affiliates make a deal with the network that they will broadcast their programming in their market and in exchange for example, content. So like ABC News will give ABC affiliates access to their video and affiliates will give ABC News access to their video. So it's a matter of sharing the resources. So what happened with Jimmy Kimmel is 2 of the nation's biggest broadcast groups, Nexstar and Sinclair, basically told ABC, we're not going to show Jimmy Kimmel in our markets, and they got a bunch of markets, if you don't rectify the situation. And I should mention that right now, currently, Nexstar is trying to buy one of the other big station groups, Tegna, which owns stations in Dallas and Atlanta, which now are getting into top 10 big city markets. So you see, in a time where viewership is declining, ABC can't really afford to piss off 2 of the big broadcast groups. Now, if that deal goes through, that means Nexstar will own 265 stations in 44 states and DC, which also Sinclair has a station in DC, the ABC station. That represents 80% of US households. Right now, Nexstar owns 32 ABC stations. Now, both Nexstar and Sinclair have been trying to proposition the FCC to relax regulations on the number of stations they can buy, because if it's up to them, they would buy more. And local news is some of the cheapest programming to produce. So if a station doesn't want to buy a syndicated show, they just throw on another local news show, 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m. And when budgets are being slashed and in small towns where they just can't produce that much content, you get this much local news and then it is packed with something that comes from the headquarters. Anyways, I just wanted to add context.
Andrew Alford, the president of Nexstar's broadcasting division, said the comments were, quote, offensive and insensitive at a critical time in our nation's political discourse.
I'm going to show you Jimmy Kimmel's full comments on Charlie Kirk that got his show taken down by ABC and by Trump indefinitely, and you tell me if you think they're just so disgusting that it had to happen.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from.
Here's everything you need to know about the off-key monologue that got Jimmy Kimmel's show pulled indefinitely. The controversy began during Monday's show when the late-night comic started off by claiming that MAGA was using Charlie Kirk's assassination to score political points.
In between the finger-pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish, okay?
Kimmel then doubled down, sharing that it wasn't the first time since Kirk's murder that Trump redirected a question about the Turning Point USA founder back to the White House ballroom.
And it didn't just happen once.
When I heard it, I was in the midst of, building a great, for 150 years, they've wanted a ballroom at the White House, right? They don't have a ballroom, they have to use tents. And they came in, they said, Charlie Kirk is dead. I didn't know what they meant. I said, he was dead. Charlie Kirk was shot.
And then we installed the most beautiful chandelier. Sconces you wouldn't believe.
Epstein files contain one of the most hidden secrets of U.S. government. The billionaires are hiding this from you, hiding this from the public. Once you mention something to do with Epstein file, you have to disappear, lose your job, or die. Charlie Kirk mentioned about Epstein files and consistently say that they need to release that particular files to the public. What happened to him? 2 weeks later, he was dead, assassinated in front of the street. We don't know anything about that. Elon Musk, the moment he mentioned something to do with Epstein files, he was fired, taken away. Why is Donald Trump not ready to release these particular files to the public? Because he was involved in one of those particular tapes and files. Epstein files are not a secret anymore. If you want to be an enemy of the state, just release a tiny bit of information held in those particular secret lockers inside the court. And have you ever asked yourself, how comes 2 judges have signed not to release those particular files out there to the public? Because it contains vital information. Those particular information, when they are released to the public, is going to dirtify their names. U.S. government is not ready to release the Epstein files. Why at this particular moment? Because it contains a lot of secrets of these particular billionaires. Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, talk about Joe Biden, all of them. And there is a lot of footages in those particular files. These billionaires used to party inside those particular private jets, and they could have sex to another level. Threesomes, dog style, all types of styles. But the crazy part about those particular files, it recorded footages of underage girls being on those particular private jets, in those particular parties. So, the real deal is here. They don't want you to see the billionaires, how they keep on partying, using underage girls to satisfy themselves the pressure of sex. That's the thing. All these particular billionaires you keep on hearing, they are being mentioned in those particular files. The reason they don't want those particular files to be released to the public is because they're going to dirtify their names. They are going to be seen as bastards, corrupt people all over. And it is not only billionaires in America.